Seth Rollins catches Roman Reigns and Jey Uso off guard backstage on WWE Raw. What happens when the architect interrupts the tribal chief and main event Jey Uso backstage? Tensions explode, alliances are tested, and the WWE locker room may never be the same again. In this intense WWE Raw moment, Seth Rollins delivers a shocking backstage appearance that no one saw coming. Just when Roman Reigns and Jey Uso thought they were in control, Rollins steps in with mind games, old grudges, and a message that shakes the foundations of the bloodline. The tension in the WWE locker room had been simmering for months. But no one, not even the most seasoned insiders, expected what happened backstage on this stormy Monday Night Raw. The cameras hadn't been rolling yet. No producers were shouting cues. The crowd was roaring in the arena, oblivious to the silent war about to erupt behind the curtain. And at the center of it all stood the architect. Seth Rollins wasn't supposed to be there. Not tonight. Not in that hallway. And certainly not face-to-face with two men who once stood beside him during the most dominant era in modern WWE history. But some wounds don't heal. Some debts remain unpaid. And tonight, Seth came to collect. In a dimly lit corridor tucked deep within the arena, Roman Reigns stood talking to Jey Uso. The tribal chief's voice was low, commanding. His demeanor was tense, but steady. Ever since Solo Sikoa fractured the bloodline and Paul Heyman aligned with new forces, Roman had kept his circle small. Jey's recent return to Raw had been a calculated move, but not one without risk. Roman knew loyalty was fragile, especially in a company where trust is currency and betrayal is tradition. As the two cousins spoke in hushed tones, the hallway flickered under fluorescent lights. Their conversation, layered in history and tension, was interrupted by something neither of them saw coming. A slow, deliberate clap echoed from the far end of the hallway. Clap. 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 Roman turned first. His expression hardened. Jey's eyes narrowed. Out of the shadows emerged a figure in all black. Seth freakin' Rollins. No music. No pyro. Just pure presence. His smile wasn't warm, it was surgical. His footsteps were measured, but his energy was wild. Like a bomb waiting to go off. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then Seth tilted his head. Well, he said, voice thick with sarcasm. The tribal chief. And his right-hand man. Or is it left now? Hard to keep track these days with all the family therapy. Jey shifted uncomfortably. Roman said nothing. He stared at Seth with that cold, calculating gaze that has broken so many men before. But Seth wasn't here to be broken. Not this time. You didn't think I'd come back here, did you? Seth continued, pacing slowly toward them. Not after everything. Not after the mind games, the attacks, the whispers from Heyman's corner. You thought you had me checked out. Injured. Out of the picture. He stopped just a few feet from Roman. But the thing about chess, Roman, Seth leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. It's not over until the king falls. Roman's jaw tightened. Jey instinctively stepped forward, like a bodyguard unsure of what was coming next, but Seth didn't flinch. Easy, Jey, he said without looking. I'm not here to fight. Not yet. For a moment, the three stood frozen in a tense triangle of history. Years of betrayal, brotherhood, and buried grudges hung in the air like smoke. Then Seth spoke again. You remember what you said to me in 2022? When I walked out of the Rumble match with your head in my hands. You told me I was beneath you. That I'd never be on your level. That you were the foundation of WWE. He laughed bitterly, but here's the truth, Roman. I've been the foundation all along. While you were hiding behind Heyman, behind your cousins, behind all that tribal chief propaganda, I was out here wrestling every week. Building legacies. Bleeding for this company. And when I fell, I didn't fall because of injury. I fell because someone stabbed me in the back. He turned his eyes to Jey. You were there, weren't you? Jey didn't respond, but his silence said enough. You knew about it. About the setup at Backlash. About Bronson Reed. About the ambush backstage. Hell, maybe you even co-signed it. Maybe the whole family did. Roman finally spoke, his voice slow and calm, but filled with ice. You shouldn't be here, Seth. This conversation isn't for you. Seth's eyes lit with something dangerous. He stepped even closer. Oh, but see, it is. Because I've had enough of the games. Enough of watching from the sidelines while you walk around calling yourself the head of the table. You think this ends with you holding the MIT briefcase and my title shot? You think I won't come for you? He leaned in again, this time close enough to smell the sweat on Roman's skin. I'm not just coming for you, Roman. I'm coming for everything. The title. The legacy. The bloodline. I'm going to burn it all down. A deadly silence followed. Jay looked at Roman, unsure whether to strike. Roman stared at Seth with a stoic expression, but his fingers curled into a fist behind his back. The tension was suffocating. Then, from the far end of the hallway, footsteps approached. Security. Producers. The backstage crew that had been watching everything from a distance now rushed in, sensing things were about to boil over, but Seth didn't move. He raised his hands slowly, mockingly. Relax, he smirked. I'm done talking for now. He turned to leave but paused, glancing back over his shoulder. One more thing, Roman. He pointed to the bloodline tattoo on Roman's arm. Everything that symbol stood for? It's gone. Jay walked out once. Jimmy's nowhere. Solo's gone rogue. Heyman betrayed you. And your title? It's not yours anymore. It's just borrowed time. Then he vanished into the darkness. The producers looked at Roman, unsure of what to do. Jay stood motionless, his fists clenched, his eyes lingering where Seth once stood. Roman didn't say a word. He turned to Jay slowly and muttered under his breath, "Find out where he's going next." And, just like that, the chessboard shifted. What WWE fans witnessed on Raw that night wasn't a brawl. It wasn't a match or a segment on the show rundown. It was the start of a war, a quiet declaration that reverberated through every corner of the locker room. The Shield was long dead, but the scars they left behind still bled. The backstage hallway remained silent long after Seth Rollins had disappeared into the shadows. It wasn't the kind of silence that follows a finished conversation, it was the kind that lingers. That wraps around the walls like a ghost and whispers that something irreversible had just taken place. Jey Uso exhaled slowly, his face unreadable. But his eyes were darting, searching for something, perhaps logic, perhaps memory, perhaps guilt. Roman Reigns didn't speak. Not yet. His breathing was steady, but his aura was anything but calm. He had been blindsided, and not by fists or steel chairs, but by words. And those cut deeper. Moments later, a producer approached them with a concerned look. "Do you want us to escort Rollins from the building?" The man asked cautiously. Roman didn't respond immediately. He kept staring down the hallway as if expecting Seth to walk back around the corner, grinning, arms spread wide like the devil returning to collect a debt. "No," Roman finally said. "Let him roam." The producer looked confused. Roman's voice hardened. "He came here to send a message. Let him feel like he did. Let him think he caught us off guard." He turned slowly toward Jay and said, low and deliberate, "But next time, we finish it." Jay nodded once, but his jaw tightened. There was something unsettled in his posture, something Roman didn't miss. Back in the locker room, whispers were spreading like wildfire. Damian Priest, lacing his boots, paused mid-motion when he heard the crew talk. "You serious? Rollins just showed up backstage unannounced?" While Roman and Jay were talking, Sami Zayn leaned in, overhearing the chatter from the far bench. They said Seth walked right up to them. No security. No cameras. Just him and all that smoke. Rhea Ripley glanced over from the mirror where she was adjusting her makeup. "That man's got a death wish." No one laughed, because they all knew what this meant. Seth Rollins wasn't just back, he was provoking war. And in WWE, when you target the bloodline, you don't just pick a fight with one man. You ignite a legacy. In the corner of the room, Cody Rhodes sat alone, his face solemn. He didn't speak, but he had seen that look in Seth before years ago when Rollins betrayed the Shield. That wasn't the face of a man looking for justice. It was the face of a man looking to tear down the very thing he once helped build. Behind closed doors, word had already reached the top. Triple H stood in his office with his arms crossed, eyes fixed on the security feed that replayed the silent confrontation from earlier. Roman and Jay, mid-conversation. Seth Rollins appearing from the dark. No words were recorded, but the body language was unmistakable. Tension, defiance, threat. "Damn it, Seth," Hunter muttered under his breath. Shawn Michaels stood nearby, leaning against the wall. "He's not thinking clearly," Shawn said. "No." Triple H replied. "He's thinking exactly clearly. That's what makes it dangerous." They watched the footage in silence for another few moments before Hunter finally turned away and walked to his desk. He picked up his phone and scrolled through his messages. There it was, Rollins' name. A single text: "We're not finished. I'm not done until I take it all." Hunter rubbed his forehead, tension building behind his eyes. If this continued to escalate, the entire Raw roster could be pulled into a battle for dominance, one that wasn't just about championships, but about history, betrayal, and blood. Later that night, Seth Rollins walked the parking garage alone, hoodie up, his bag slung over his shoulder. He had come, delivered his message, and now he was walking back into the night like a man who had nothing left to lose. But just as he reached his car, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned slowly. It was Jey Uso, not Roman. Just Jey. The two locked eyes under the flickering garage lights. No words were spoken. Just silence, thick with past sins and present tensions. Seth tilted his head. "You come to finish what your cousin didn't?" he asked coolly. Jey's eyes darkened. "Nah," he said. "I came to ask you, why now?" Seth's smile was slow. "Sad, even, because I've watched long enough. Because I bled for this company while Roman hid behind titles. Because while you all turned into kings of the castle, I've been out here living in the ruins." He stepped forward. "You ever wonder what it's like to feel like the real backbone of WWE, but have your knees snapped from underneath you? You ever get stabbed in the back twice by the same family and still show up because you love this place too damn much?" Jey said nothing. He just listened. Seth's voice grew colder. "You know what hurts more than getting jumped backstage, Jey? Knowing that the same people who walked with you for years watched it happen." Jey's jaw tightened. "I didn't know Bronson was gonna do that," he said. "That wasn't me." "But you didn't stop it," Seth shot back. The silence between them was razor sharp. "I ain't your enemy, yes," Jey said finally. "I got my own war to fight." Seth stepped closer, their faces inches apart. "Then pick a side. Because this ain't over. And next time, I won't just talk." He walked past Jey without another word. And Jey just stood there, fists clenched at his sides. Meanwhile, Roman Reigns sat alone in a dressing room, taping his wrists in silence. He didn't need anyone to tell him what Seth's appearance meant. This wasn't about championships anymore. This wasn't about Raw or SmackDown. This was personal. This was Shield level. He'd heard the rumors. That Rollins was planning something. That he'd been talking to people in the locker room. That he might even have allies. But Roman didn't fear factions. He built one. The only question now was who would strike first. A knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. It was Heyman, nervous, unsure. "Roman," he said, wringing his hands. "I just saw the footage. Seth, he's not backing down." Roman looked up slowly. "You think I didn't know this was coming?" Heyman blinked. Roman stood, towering over him. "Let him come. Let him bring fire. I've stood in that ring while crowds booed me out of the building. I've carried this company through pandemics and sold-out stadiums. Seth wants to burn it down." Roman narrowed his eyes. Then he better be ready for what's left in the ashes. Backstage, the energy shifted completely. You could feel it in the hallways. The way wrestlers kept their heads down. The way production assistants moved a little faster. Like a storm cloud was settling over Raw, and no one knew where the lightning would strike next. Everyone was choosing sides, even if they didn't say it out loud. Some stood with Rollins, the workhorse, the performer, the survivor. Others stayed loyal to Reigns. The dynasty, the dominance, the tribal chief. But deep down, they all knew what this was leading to. There would be no peace. No handshake. No respect storyline. This was war, and for the first time in years, the battleground wasn't the ring. It was the silence before the entrance music. It was the hallways. It was tonight. The fallout from Seth Rollins' backstage confrontation with Roman Reigns and Jey Uso didn't take long to ripple through the WWE universe. Within 24 hours, footage of the shadowy exchange, captured by a roaming security camera and conveniently leaked to social media, was already trending worldwide. Hashtags like hashtag Rollins vs. Reigns and hashtag RAW Backstage War ignited firestorms on X, Instagram, and YouTube. Fans dissected every expression, every pause in conversation, every subtle step forward as if decoding an encrypted message from the gods of wrestling themselves. But inside WWE headquarters, there was no speculation. Only alarm. Triple H watched the viral footage over and over, each time with a deeper furrow in his brow. In a post-Vince McMahon era where control and narrative meant everything, this level of real, unscripted tension was both gold and dynamite. One wrong move, and the entire locker room could fracture. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand down his beard. Then he made the call. Backstage, preparations for the next week's Monday Night Raw were already underway, but the vibe was unlike anything creative had seen in months. "Hey," murmured a production assistant to a senior writer. "Is it true Seth called Roman out again off script?" The writer didn't look up from his laptop. "It's not a storyline anymore. It's a reckoning." Meanwhile, in a smaller, darker corner of the locker room, two other names were quietly preparing to make their own moves: Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. They had seen enough to know what was coming. The WWE wasn't just on the brink of a new feud. It was teetering on the edge of a full-blown faction war. And if history taught them anything, it was that you don't survive a bloodline feud by standing alone. "You really thinking of siding with Rollins?" Sami asked, arms crossed as he leaned against a steel locker. Kevin didn't answer right away. He stared at the floor, thoughtful. "He deserves it," Kevin finally muttered. "After what they did. After Solo. After Heyman's setup. I don't care if it's personal for Seth, it's justified." Sami sighed, scratching his beard. "Just be careful, Kev. You throw your lot in with Seth, you're not just fighting Reigns. You're fighting everything that used to be yours." In a dark, isolated gym just blocks away from the arena, Seth Rollins hit the punching bag harder than usual. Each blow echoed like thunder in the empty space. Drenched in sweat, bruises still fresh and his knee still wrapped tightly from his last televised match, Rollins wasn't preparing for a typical return. He was preparing for war, and in war, you need soldiers. His phone buzzed. It was a message from someone unexpected. "We need to talk." Riddle. Rollins paused. He hadn't spoken to Matt Riddle in months. Their past was rocky, their chemistry erratic, but Riddle was no stranger to chaos. And more importantly, he hated Roman Reigns just as much as Seth did. Moments later, another message arrived. This time from Finn Balor. "The enemy of my enemy. You know the rest. If you're serious, let's meet. You know where." Rollins stared at the screen. This wasn't about alliances anymore. This was becoming something bigger. Jey Uso sat alone in catering, hood pulled over his head, headphones in but no music playing. The room was full, but no one approached him. No one spoke to him. He was in exile, and everyone could feel it. He had followed Roman for so long. Sacrificed for the family. Fought his own brother. Bled in war after war, and now he was caught in a crossfire he didn't ask for. He remembered Seth's words. Pick a side. What side was there to pick? Roman had raised him. Let him. But had also used him. Seth had betrayed him once. But maybe Seth, unlike Roman, was finally done pretending. The loudspeaker crackled overhead. "Jey Uso, conference room C. Triple H wants to see you." He took a deep breath, stood, and walked toward whatever destiny awaited. Inside that conference room, the air was thick with history. Triple H sat at the head of the table, arms folded. Beside him stood Adam Pearce and William Regal. Across from them, Jey Uso. Hunter spoke first. "You were there during the confrontation. I need to know, what are we walking into?" Jey looked around the room, unsure of how honest he was allowed to be. "I don't know," he said. "But whatever Seth's building, it ain't gonna stop." Triple H nodded slowly. "And you?" Jey's eyes narrowed. "I'm tired of picking sides." Regal leaned forward. "Then maybe it's time to choose your own." Jey said nothing. But his silence said everything. Meanwhile, In the SmackDown locker room, Solo Sikoa scrolled through his phone, watching footage of the altercation between Seth and Roman. His face didn't betray any emotion, but his mind was racing. He had broken from Roman already, and if Seth was waging war now, it might be time for Solo to re-enter the battlefield on his own terms. You see this? Tama Tonga asked. Stepping into the room, Solo turned the screen toward him. Tama smirked. Bloodlines kraken. Just like we said. Solo's eyes burned with intensity. Then let's shatter it. In the closing moments of Monday Night Raw, the camera zoomed in on a lonely corridor once again. This time, it was empty. Silent. But then the frame shifted. Someone stepped into view. Seth Rollins. He walked slowly, deliberately, down the same hallway where he had confronted Roman. This time, he was alone again, but he wasn't empty. As he neared the locker room door, he stopped and looked directly into the handheld camera. No fanfare. No yelling. Just a message. You thought last week was about surprise. He stepped forward, voice low, intense. But this isn't surprise anymore. This is invasion. He held up his phone, and on the screen were 3 names in a group message. KO. Riddle. Baylor. He smiled. You call yourselves a bloodline. But blood spills. And when it does, he looked directly into the lens. I'll be the one standing in the puddle, smiling. The screen cut to black. The following week on Monday Night Raw wasn't advertised as special. There were no major banners. No Legends Night. No teaser trailers screaming, breaking announcement. But those in the know knew. Something was coming. You could feel it. Security had been doubled. Production crews were instructed to keep cameras rolling at all times. Even Vince McMahon's old rule, never film inside Gorilla unless told, was quietly ignored, because this wasn't about programming anymore. This was about containment. Backstage, the locker room buzzed with wisp.